All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a really specific and honestly pretty provocative philosophy on relationships. The core idea here is that what happens after you're already together is way more important than the chase. So we're going to break down its main ideas, the tools it suggests, and the ultimate mindset it's pushing for, all based on the source material.
So, right off the bat, the material we're looking at challenges something most people get hung up on, that whole courtship phase. You see it everywhere, right? This obsession with how to get the girl. But this philosophy says, hey, that's actually the easy part. The real work, the true challenge, is what they call relationship management, that ongoing game of keeping the attraction and respect alive long after you've started dating.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Let's start with the central problem this philosophy points to. It's what the source material calls the single fatal flaw that just completely tanks relationships, sometimes before they even get off the ground.
And here it is, the so-called fatal flaw. It's not some big, complicated secret. It's actually something really simple. That deep-seated, gut-level desire for a woman to like you. The material argues that this one impulse, this need for her constant approval, just eats away at the relationship. They say it's the root cause of all these behaviors that slowly kill attraction and respect.
And you can see how this plays out. This need to be liked leads to, well, 4 classic behaviors. First, appeasement. Always trying to keep her happy, even if it means changing your own plans or opinions. Then there's deferring to her, letting her call all the shots, making her the leader. Third, having 0 personal boundaries, right? You're basically on call 24/7. And finally, there's this specific kind of niceness that, according to this framework, doesn't come across as kindness but as weakness.
Now this slide is really interesting because it gets at what the source calls a massive communication gap. On the left, from a man's point of view, being nice is a good thing. It's a virtue. But on the right, you see how this philosophy claims it's often perceived. The argument is that when this niceness comes from a place of needing approval, it gets interpreted as a lack of strength, a lack of conviction, and that just kills attraction over time. Okay, so if wanting to be liked is the big mistake, what are you supposed to do instead? And the source is really clear here. The answer isn't to become a jerk. It's about a massive fundamental shift in your mindset, in what your actual goal is inside the relationship. And this is the big mindset shift. This is the core of it all. The goal isn't to be liked. The goal is to be desired and respected. According to this philosophy, those two things, desire and respect, are a way more solid foundation for a long-term relationship than just simple likability could ever be. In this quote, man, it really hammers that point home. The whole idea here is that attraction is tied to a partner's perceived value, to them being a winner. So the goal isn't just to be a nice guy she likes, but to be someone who is seen as valuable, as a prize worth having. All right, so that's the mindset. But how do you actually do it? Well, this philosophy lays out a whole toolkit of principles. There are 10 in total. But for this explainer, we're going to focus on 4 of the big ones that form the core of the whole thing. First up, we have this concept called sexual market value, or SMV, and it's really important to get this right. The source isn't talking about some kind of objective score you get like in a video game. It's all about perceived value, a mix of things like your confidence, your status, how you look, your resources, the whole package. So then the framework gives us this formula, for lack of a better word. The idea is, for the relationship to stay strong and for attraction to be maintained, she has to consistently perceive your SMV as being noticeably higher than her own. That +2 you see there represents that gap. This is presented as absolutely necessary for long-term desire. Okay, the second principle is huge. It's called frame, and this quote, wow, it just cuts right to the chase. The entire idea of holding your frame, of holding your reality, is completely built on a genuine, deep-down willingness to walk away. The source claims that if you're afraid to lose her, you have 0 power, and therefore, no frame. So what the heck is frame? Think of it like this. Every relationship has its own operating system. Whose is it? Who's setting the rules? Is she canceling her plans to fit into your world? Or are you constantly twisting your life around to fit into hers? The source material is crystal clear on this. You have to be the one whose reality she's adapting to. All right, principle number 3 is all about keeping that passion alive. And the argument here is kind of counterintuitive. It says that if things get too comfortable, too predictable, and all the challenges are gone, desire just fades away. An obstacle, whether it's your busy schedule, physical distance, or just your unwavering focus on your own mission, is actually a necessary ingredient to keep that spark going.
And the fourth key principle here is all about avoiding something the source calls oneitis. You know, that obsessive, all-consuming focus on just one person. It's not framed as some romantic sign of true love, but as a dangerous weakness that comes directly from not having any other options. In this view, having options gives you the abundance and the confidence you need to maintain your frame.
Okay, so we've got the principles, but how do you know if you're actually applying them? Well, the source gives you this sort of personal audit, a checklist of some pretty blunt questions you need to ask yourself. First question on the list, and it's a heavy one, introduces this idea of dread. Now, this isn't about being mean or making you scared. It's an honest question. Does she have a real underlying anxiety about the possibility of losing you? Because according to this framework, if that fear isn't there, it means you care more and you have less leverage. Next up, it brings us right back to that idea of frame we just talked about. It's forcing you to take a hard, honest look and ask yourself, whose world are we living in? Is she operating in your reality, conforming to your life, or have you been sucked into hers?
The checklist is also super blunt about trying to get an ex back. The source material literally calls it rooting through the trash. The argument is that the time and energy spent trying to fix something that's already broken is always better invested in finding something new.
And the last question really brings it all full circle, back to that core idea of value. Are you positioning yourself as the prize to be won? Or are you constantly apologizing, being self-deprecating, all those behaviors that this framework says just lower your value and scream that you're trying to be liked instead of desired?
So you take all these principles, all these checklist questions, and they all point to one single overarching goal, the core philosophy of this whole thing, becoming your own mental point of origin.
So what does that even mean? It means your life has its own gravity. You are the center of your own universe. Your mission, your purpose, that comes first. She is a wonderful addition to your life, a planet orbiting the sun maybe, but she is not the sun itself. She complements your life. She doesn't define it.
So what this really boils down to is an uncompromising focus on your path. You got to stay on your purpose. Keep your hobbies, your friends, your career. She's along for the ride with you, which is great, but she's not flying the plane. That's your job. Your needs and your mission are the engine that drives everything.
And so after all is said and done, this whole framework really just boils down to one single question you have to ask yourself. In your relationship, and more importantly, in your own life, are you the pilot setting the course, or are you the passenger just along for someone else's ride? Because according to this philosophy, that's the only thing that matters.